The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
All right, everyone. Welcome to the 19th episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Our hosts today are Greg from Rivet, Dave from Din.social, Ross from the Global Crypto Press, Austin from Rivet, Sean, creator and entrepreneur, and I'm Joe, architect, Dragonchain. Quick update on last week's episode. Every host from that episode will get 222 lot. Every topic contributor will get 111 lot. These are layer ownership tokens for the World Blockchain Roundtable community layer. Coming with that is passive income, free edits, future governance votes, so on, so on. Lots of cool stuff coming. The theme this week is blockchain in America. So we go straight to the questions. Hi, everybody.
Hey, good morning. Well, to whoever it's morning for.
All right. First question. And this is in response to Greg's request last week for a video form question. So I guess we'll play.
Thank you, question. By the way, I owe you an NFT.
Totally.
Yes. So given that blockchain is, I'll just let him play it.
Given that blockchain is easily adoptable by the powers that be, what lobbying or legislation do you see coming for or against blockchain in America?
All right,
nice.
Let's take it.
First video question. I love it.
That's awesome. Yep. Yeah. And I will come up with a cool NFT for that. Maybe something Tesla themed, if I can think of something. Actually, I do have a graphic of a TIE fighter or a Tesla fighter designed by Mercedes. It's a prototype. And what it looks like is a ball with Tesla logos for fins. So
nice.
I may put that into NFT form.
So who can answer the question, though?
I think he'd be surprised by how much is going on already, it sounds like, because the crypto lobbying in Washington has never been bigger, and it seems to be growing almost exponentially every year. I think we're now up to 3 official lobbying groups that represent pretty much every major crypto company that you can name is now backing one of those 3. And we are pouring millions of dollars into the campaigns of politicians who seem favorable to cryptocurrency and blockchain. And I think we're going to actually see that influence a lot of the regulations that will come up.
Yep.
I think it'll be. I think there'll be faster legislation when it comes to blockchain because it's so much. And it's weird to say, but it's so much easier to understand for I think politicians. It's just a new technology when you look at it, and you look at the possibilities, and all that. There's not the whole currency side of it, and the battle. I think it's a lot easier for them to wrap their head around. So I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen quicker.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Currency. Yeah,
because it's like, and even people that have been in this for years are still running up against a wall of like they're just talking about currency, they're just talking about money, they're just talking about finance. So I think that's the threshold that I see is like once you like break through that wall of that's all we're talking about. It's just like, It's just technology and it's new.
I mean, you can tell a top politician, we're not talking about the money, we're talking about the printing press. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I get that. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a really great analogy, Sean. It's not the money, it's the printing press. I love that. That's a fantastic way to put it. I think what we're going to see too is decentralized organizations getting in on lobbying. at some point. Probably also all sorts of political funding. And that's going to create a whole new area of representation that is not currently.
That's one thing I'm particularly excited about, is this prospect of doing decentralized fundraising for having a really low bar to get into, chipping into a lobbying campaign of, like if you think about public choice theory, which basically says, when you have a public policy with distributed costs and concentrated benefits, you'll have a lot of people who get the concentrated benefits where, this is their livelihood. They are going to campaign to keep this policy around for as long as they can, because, everything is on the line for them. If this policy goes away, their livelihood is gone. On the flip side of that, you have all of the people who are actually paying for it. And a lot of these policies are just like woefully inefficient, where, like you have, one of my favorite examples is, and since the question tangentially related to Tesla, there's policies in lots of states that you can't have direct sale of vehicles to consumers, that you have to have this from manufacturer to consumer. You've got to have this intermediary of a car dealership, and that ends up costing the customers way more than it ends up benefiting the car dealerships. So if everybody pitched in a little portion of what that was costing them, you could cover the cost for the car dealerships, much more efficiently. Not that that's what you ought to do, but I guess the thing that excites me about the prospect of decentralizing lobbying is that sure, I might chip in $5 a year to campaign against the sugar tariffs that make my sugar be more expensive, right? I'm not gonna spend a lot of time sitting down writing letters to my congressman over this issue that cost me $5 a year. But I might chip in to a decentralized campaign to do something about that. So the idea that you could have almost like microtransaction oriented lobbying aggregation, I think that's got a really interesting
like Party Bid for NFT auctions could be very similar, where you spin up this little decentralized autonomous organization just to raise a fundraising goal to hire a lobbyist for a specific issue, and then the thing closes, and that's that.
There is something on it's got nothing to do with blockchain, but it's similar to that, where there was it's called Defeat by Tweet, I think, and it was where in the beginning it was something that every time here's how it started. Every time Donald Trump tweeted, whoever signed up for this would automatically donate a microtransaction to the like anti-Trump thing that they were doing. And it started that way. And I thought it was an interesting way to like get people on board of an organization that's leading an effort, and then just giving them a metric saying every time this happens, you give a little bit of a microtransaction, and that fund is
right.
It sounds like a drinking game.
It does. I was about to say that, Sean. You could even incentivize a candidate to say ridiculous words if you notified them up front that as many times as you can squeeze in. It's like Super Troopers. Anytime you can squeeze in meow, you get a little campaign contribution.
Yeah, stuff like that. And I think that's exciting, because you're going to see what happened already is you're going to see government bodies and politicians be blindsided by the amount of resources available once the overall distributed cryptocurrency community decides, okay, well, I've always hated lobbying and it's not going to go away. So how do we fix it?
That's, in my opinion, that's the interesting thing, that the system's broken enough that a very small number of people can control all of the tax spending and all of the decisions for everyone else. And you have to find a way to defeat that, and whether it's issue by issue or hopefully in long term constitutionally. But that it was a weird thing, because back in 2017, 2018, I tried to get people interested in something similar, but because you think about red light cameras, it's a favorite, I guess, use case of mine because nobody likes them. They're very inefficient. They're dangerous. They're definitely not good for society, but somehow they've taken over. They're in every major city, right? Why is that? It's because the people who are actually taking all that money, probably not legally, are just lobbying. They're lobbying and saying, look, here's some money for you that's going to come in, some revenue. You don't have to raise taxes. You don't have to do any of this. So all these cities are weak and broken. So they take them. And my thought is, if you have a parallel universe that is operating virtually with scarcity and value, you can basically beat that lobby. You could basically go town to town and destroy that lobby by saying, we're going to vote you out, or we're going to basically promote any candidate who says they're going to get rid of these red light cameras. And theoretically, you could build consensus. It'd be the weirdest part about it is the fact that it's very local, right? So you have to, how do I get enough people to put money in this, unless it's like some organized city by city.
And that's what I'm all about too, is because it seems to me the best place to experiment is very hyper local, because I can go potentially knock on the door of the mayor and talk to him. I can't do that at the White House. I can't do that as easily in Tallahassee.
I will tell you, if everybody listening, that does matter, because whether it's a national or a local seat, they do listen. And right now they only hear from the lobbyists. So if they hear from a citizen, it's a totally different thing. They do take note. So
it's easier.
It's absolutely true.
Model things locally and see what works and doesn't work before you decide, like, okay, well, now this is going to be a regional effort, or now this is going to be a statewide effort, or whatever.
The other really neat thing about this is counter efforts tend to get counter lobbies going, but with with the kind of quickness and nimbleness you can spin up something in a decentralized way, you don't have time for those kinds of countering of sort of flash mob movements. Right. So there's going to be no chance for people who are more traditionally institutionalized to completely spend you out if you were able to spin up a micro campaign and lobby on your particular issue.
Right.
You've got a high paid lobbyist in the door before they've got a chance to realize there's even a campaign going on.
Yep. Because if you do that, it tends to be unbalanced in a good way. That is, it takes less money to move things in a sensible way than in a, because the lobbyists can get through a lot of crazy stuff, but if the sensible people wake up, it's usually easy to defeat that stuff because nobody wants it, right?
Well, and the inverse is also true, right? Because you've got these big campaigns from these big players. They spin up slowly. You can see that happen in real time. You can guess what they're going to be lobbying for, right? Because you can just watch the messaging as it rolls out. Yeah. And counter campaigns can come up real fast.
A really great example for blockchain and lobbying in America or making things happen is Wyoming and Miami. At least I think there are probably some others, but I know in the state that we used to live in, I tried to talk them into something that would have been a tax credit for mining or a tax credit for use or accepting crypto, and it was too early. Right? They didn't get it, but at least they kind of. They did listen, and they did do some things later that were very interesting. I
think about that sometimes too, as far as being too early, because there's a lot of things you hear about, like, oh, it was ahead of its time. And I just feel like, okay, assuming we're early and ahead of our time, how do we keep it alive until we're not ahead of our time anymore, so it doesn't go away?
Yep.
I think bouncing to the, is this a new question? Are we still on the blockchain one? Showing. Robert Beatles has a part of his big project called, I think, Project Sunlight. I forget the website because New York is kind of taking it too. But it's all about getting involved at a local level and kind of trying to change the system, not worrying like the national level. It's gone, it's screwed. Forget about it. We have to either have a huge revolt and another civil war, or we can try to fix it from the ground up. So it's all about focusing on local stuff and just, if you have time, run for school board, run for these little political offices, talk to these people. It all has to go there. But if you can educate people on the uses of blockchain, then they could start instituting it. And once they're successful, like with the voting, on like a county level or a state level, once there's success, that's so much easier to sell the public a success story than to try to sell politicians into something that is going to make their nefarious activities easier to view.
Right.
Yeah, coming with an example is definitely helpful.
Well, like Tesla is an example, right? There's no access to the federal tax credit for EVs anymore. It hurts the adoption of real electric cars that are actually out there, as opposed to vaporware that doesn't have a parallel charging network that we're somehow funding for some reason. You could at a local level have an easier time getting a property tax discount that would match the EV credit that used to happen. Like just the amount of influence that you have to shove is a lot less, and you have a lot more local influence than you probably even know.
Yeah. Okay, you go next question. That was pretty good. Sure. Answers there. All right, Jegs. Sorry, I was looking at the answer. Why are regulators making it so hard for blockchain to succeed in America, and why haven't they given clarity on certain projects being securities or utilities? Who wants to take that one?
When I just said it, it's because blockchain really does, when you look at it on a long term, shine a light on a lot of stuff they don't want a light shine on. And the second part is just a confusion. We talked about it a million times. It's not that these people are stupid, which is hard to argue, I'll admit, but it's that they just know the stuff that they're fed. And going back to the beginning of the last question, they're fed by lobbyists who are telling them, "Oh, this is the worst stuff. If you adopt this stuff, babies are going to die. Maybe your grandkid. I don't know." So like, "Oh, this is terrible. Your grandkids will die," and everyone's like, "What? Are you a moron?" No, they'll die. I know. It's just because it's garbage they've been fed from high-paid lobbyists.
I don't think people also know about protocols. I think needing to know about protocols as a concept, this idea that there's this open standard of a thing that anybody can build to this specification, and it works to do whatever it is that you can do with it. Like email was a protocol originally, right? So if the SEC was like, let's check every single one of these email messages, because this is obviously a tool for communicating only fraudulent financial solicitations from unlicensed brokers. 2021. So we need to see every email before we clear it as a non-security, and then you can use it for other stuff. But we have to clear it first. Like, that's just nonsense, and that's what we're doing with crypto right now.
Well, that's kind of been what's been holding me back on a personal level for a while, because I'm a little bit terrified of my government. I've had enough experiences to be like, wow, I don't know if, like, when there's not clarity, there's less people are less willing to take up and start a new business to build around something that they think can work and that they think will be useful to the community and society, because they're just afraid of like someone who doesn't understand putting the hammer down. But what I've decided recently is like, okay, well, it's going to take people who are willing to operate in gray areas and talk about it and debate it if they try to get shut down. It's just gonna take a willingness to not necessarily fight against the powers that be, but just to operate in the, here be dragons, the unknown, uncharted territory, see what happens, correct course whenever you need to, and hope you don't land in jail for the rest of your life for doing something that's supposed to be good for society.
Yeah.
So when you talk about regulation in America, it's one of my most, pet peeves, I guess. It's just this whole, me, a guy that was a decade in the military fighting for freedom and fighting for all these things that we believe for. And then this whole industry starts up and it's the opposite of like, no new stuff. And only the people that have been running it can continue to run it. And money is fine. We don't need to fix it, no matter what everyone says. So it's just going to take people willing to do it and stick their neck out, I think. And then once people stick their neck out, others will follow and say, well, they did it, so I guess I can do it too.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like this latest round of stuff from the regulators of, saying, oh yeah, come talk to us. We'll help you figure this out. And then utterly refusing to Coinbase when they come, refusing to talk to Coinbase when they come asking about, what can I do to make this Lind process legal?
That specifically,
they're not even pretending they're not corrupt anymore. Like they've just given up any pretense of that. They can't figure out how to control it. They're just trying to shut it down, and like they've just given up the pretense that they're not corrupt.
Right, taxing unrealized gains. Right, what the hell is that?
That's scary. Maybe we can hit that later, man.
I wouldn't jump to corrupt. Oh, go ahead. Go finish.
No, you go first. I don't want to.
I have a hard time jumping to the corruption thing. As much as I jumped there on so many political issues, that is the answer. On this one, I think age and just cluelessness of technology plays such a massive role. You really look at some of the decisions they make and the amount of money. You look at corruption. Corruption makes it mean they want money. They've passed up a lot of money by screwing some of this stuff up.
Well, they've passed up money for people like citizens who could have benefited for it. They've definitely protected people from making money.
Let me read. Let me just read this couple of sentences from a report I did covering this. It's called "How U.S. Lawmakers Blew It: The Multi-Billion-Dollar Blockchain Industry That Left America." And this really just highlights my point. Grasp how insane this is. Other countries lobby hard to get these multi-billion-dollar tech companies and financial companies to set up shop in their homeland. But for the U.S., these companies were already here. We didn't need to convince them to come. We just had to not scare them away. In the case of Facebook and Libra, to lure them into their country, Switzerland passed new regulations around stablecoins. When those of us in the U.S. hear the word regulation in regard to crypto, we assume it's bad news. But no, Switzerland passed regulations that would actually help Libra operate in their country. The red flags that should have caused U.S. leaders to say, wait a second, something doesn't seem right here, should have been obvious when we saw another first world nation doing everything they could to convince companies we were scaring away to move to theirs. Obviously, Switzerland wasn't working this hard just to get a bunch of awful companies to come there and launch projects doomed to fail. But not a single U.S. leader suggested that we pause and attempt to understand what's happening. 3 out of the top 100 projects since this in 2019 have launched here. That's tech ignorance. I don't think that's corruption.
Oh, no, it's absolutely corruption. It's absolutely corruption because they're doing it to protect the existing financial industry that is here in the United States. Wall Street is here. The big banks are here. That's what they're protecting.
And that's the reason I did that though was because look at who was.
I will say the smoking gun thing from 1912 though.
I do think you're both right because I like say it is corruption, but I do think they don't understand the difference in money that we're talking about trillions of dollars. They're much bigger than the current financial industry that they're getting money from. And if you look at, all of the things, in my opinion, it started with the banks. The banks didn't like Bitcoin, scared the crap out of them. Then around 2017, all the VCs, also with big pocketbooks and big lobbying, didn't like that the ICO craze was happening and that billions of money was not flowing into their coffers, instead was flowing worldwide, that kids in the third world could participate. This can't be. We have to protect them.
Right.
And
I think all of you are looking at this way too logically, as usual. You guys are using words like corruption and other things and how you don't understand. The thing you haven't taken into account is just the sheer hubris of the United States and its government.
Right, and they think they will be able to shut it down and protect their existing interests.
Yeah, is Facebook really doing anything? Is Libra doing anything? No. So they're allowing them to play because they don't care. And I think they honestly think if it ever is a real threat, we'll crush it. Whatever, we'll crush it.
That's what I was saying.
And so the EU policy, we'll crush it militarily. We'll kill.
1910. And there's Jekyll Island. That is the smoking gun for this corruption. It's normalized. It doesn't feel like corruption anymore because it started back then.
Yeah, it's our whole basis for the entire financial world, right? Is that, and it's underlying everything. It's like we complain about normal taxes, but inflation is an all-encompassing tax everywhere, right?
It's a scam we've gotten used to.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that Satoshi did solve was scarcity, real, measurable, and demonstrable, transparent scarcity on that supply, and that is the most important thing.
But I do think Ross is right. To be fair to Ross, I think he's right that this isn't a traditional example of what you would traditionally call corruption. It's not. There's not a guy meeting somebody with a briefcase. This is a systemic level of corruption. It's a lot more like a blight than
Maybe
it is.
that's what I have
like
in my
a
mind. Okay,
smoking
I do
gun.
see Austin's point. Like, I do see Austin's point, and it's valid. But yeah,
And-
it's a whole fresh new kind of corruption for us to enjoy.
Yeah, and we mentioned it before
It's
too.
almost
but
like honorable among thieves. You know,
well, and that's exactly it. You look at
it's one side.
the very first official, well, I would say, of a Senate calling for Bitcoin to be banned. You know, and that was an example of the hubris. They thought that they could ban it at the time, and that was Schumer and Manchin.
Brad Sherman brought the bill.
Yeah, they were both banking committee, right?
I think guy's a weasel.
So
well, that's what I was going to say.
Sherman, the guy that's backed completely by Chinese and Swiss banks.
Yeah.
He's
a weasel.
Look at who.
He's so much of a weasel that he only pushes his speech through his nose.
Also was talking specifically about the Lend program, the Coinbase Lend program. And I just wanted to say that if you're watching and you haven't looked into what happened there, to me, in my opinion, it's one of the most obvious like wake up calls to where a situation where you have an organization providing a better product that banks can't compete with. It is insured just like your banking dollars. They were insuring your principal. Everything about the product was better. And it's just, you can't, the banks that are offering 0.5% on your savings account cannot compete with 4%. And there was no reason for the SEC, according to them even, to crush that idea. And whenever the company reached out to meet with them to find out, okay, what about this is making it a security? They said, we don't know. It just is. And you can't do it. And to me, in my opinion, it was literally, somebody made a phone call or met with a briefcase and was like, hey, we don't want to compete. We don't want to innovate. We just don't want this to, what's the word I'm looking for? To trump our product, And
how is that not hubris? I mean, that's literally like a parent, like, because I said so. End of discussion.
It's the same issue that we have insurmountable. Nobody knows all the laws because the government wants to have that there. So everybody's breaking some law somewhere so they can get you at some point. And by not putting out clear regulations, everybody just has to say, well, we can't really do something that we thought we should be able to do. It's entirely, and I'm an engineer, right? So I'm not a lawyer. So as an engineer, I want to build things, and I want to build things that
go even further on that, Joe. Like Dave mentioned something, and it was like a punch in the face, that he's terrified of his government, so he's terrified to do certain things. And with over the past, year, 2 years, and you can be totally for all the restrictions and lockdowns and understand why Australia is the way it is, but you can't argue with the fact that the Constitution has become more of just a piece of paper. And that used to be something that people would, we'll check all our boxes here, and we will stand behind that piece of paper. It's going to protect us. And now people have realized that it's a piece of paper, a fist can go right through it and grab you by the throat. A bullet can go right through it. So that's, I think, part of the fear.
Right. You're totally right. There are unrealized rights, I guess, to a certain degree. I think that we can have legal rights that we lose in practice, and we can have practical rights that we have no legal right to. And so can government actors. They can violate the Constitution, and if we let them, then they have the right to do so. Even if the Constitution would be properly enforced, outlawing that behavior. And the same goes for people. We can have a right that legally we do not have if we take it. And I think that's a lot of what we have to have the courage to do if we're going to make this thing, not just a retread of Web 2.
Also, I think that the government has realized that we literally can do whatever we want. If we want to get something done, like get everybody stuck or whatever it is, we can say this, go against the Constitution, become totally fascist, and we got like 6 weeks, 8 weeks until the Supreme Court or whoever, the system forces us to the check and balance to us. So that kicks in, and they know that. But like, hey, 2 months, we're done,
and we're paying for the bread and circus. I mean, that's what it is. They have the bread and circus to offer to put everyone to sleep. We either give you something or we entertain you, and we're paying for it. And our only weapon is vigilance right now, right? So, you have to watch it, and you have to resist. Basically, it's the only real way. But anyway, you want to go next? Next question.
Well,
Sure.
Again, I was just saying. Actually, I forgot what I was saying. So yeah, let's go to the next.
Right on. Jacob Wayne. Question: what would be the main incentive for major American companies, McDonald's, Delta Airlines, Wells Fargo, etc., to transition their data and operations to blockchain? What do you guys think? I mean, yeah.
I think it's overhead and efficiency, but that's kind of my only opinion there. It's just cheaper.
Maybe investor accountability. I mean, you would have that ledger that no one can dispute.
NFTs, man. You get a Happy Meal, you get a piece of digital art or a game piece for your actual video game.
That's so happening. Once you said that, I'm like, wow. Yeah, give that like what, 3 years maybe?
No,
yeah.
Burger King's doing that already. They're giving away NFTs with meals at Burger King.
Y'all got to stop talking about NFTs, or I'm going to have to tell you my NFT story. I want to tell everyone about my NFT story.
We can do that. Huh?
Yeah, I want to hear it, Sean.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
So my buddy, he works with a lot of rappers and stuff and makes NFTs for them. And his son, and then mainly they're based out of Canada. So I don't know if you ever heard of Kid Rich, the rapper.
Yeah.
You have?
Yes, actually.
He dropped some of these NFTs, and he's like, "Hey man, you got to get some of these NFTs." But the whitelisted my wallet. I can only get 2, and I got another 2 for a friend of mine, like Quinn Lisa, and so I'm waiting for they're all the same. Like they just revealed like today, but I got a drop of this one. It's just a notebook with like words on it, a lot of words, and then he autographed it, and so but it was weird. I thought it was one of my NFTs that revealed themselves. So I asked my friend. I was like, "Yeah, I still can't. This is weird, because I could. It says I could buy one, but I also can sell it because there's like a few of them. But anyway, he's like, "Oh, dude, don't sell that. It's like super ultra rare. You got like this drop." He said, "That's lyrics. Actually, it's autographed, but you can get a producer credit on his next album and royalties from that."
Holy shit, man!
Wow. I was like, "What?
That's awesome."
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I love that kind of thing with the arts, being able to find. That's the biggest thing that I've experienced with, even managing a band a while back and stuff. It's just money. Like, how do you find resources to do stuff?
There's the thing. In the old days, when you had a studio, you could get a DAT deck, a digital audio tape, which was but they basically made them illegal, or they made them so you couldn't attain them in the U.S. as a consumer, right? They used to be a powerful lobby. The music and movie industries. What happened? Because I could see this being the thing that frees all of the musicians, all the artists, because all of a sudden, if you can do stuff like that, you can fund an album. Things are cheap to produce now, right? So
I think that's the answer to what happened is things got cheap to produce, things got cheap to distribute, and now it is.
Well, now the streaming companies hold the keys, right? So it's Apple, Google.
I was talking to an artist, Zach Deputy, and I was explaining to him how this stuff works. He doesn't know anything about blockchain, and basically, I was just talking about taking out the middleman and easy access to do it yourself. And he said something that I thought was a great quote. He said, "Yeah, artists never need to know pimp anyway," and I thought that was great. I just wanted to share that.
Airlines is another interesting one. I don't think Delta is really going to be the thing that ends up rocking the airline use of crypto. I think it's going to be private providers. I think that right now we have a situation where, like, if you've ever checked out like ExoJet or BlackJet or whatever, it's meant to try to use a centralized platform to decentralize private air travel, right? It makes it possible for various authorities to make that less easy to spread around, so it keeps the cost high. What if you didn't need an airline? What if it was just a deal between a pilot and passengers, and it can be organized decentralized? I think that's really when we're going to see some magic happen with air travel.
No, well, and Greg, you and I have talked
like
about
a decentralized air Uber.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, so like. And I think it'll be more practical as an Uber before it becomes an air Uber. But you know, and so like Tesla's starting to turn on their full self-driving, right? And I know they're not quite to the point where like the cars will be driving around without any people in them, but we'll be there in, you know, maybe 5 to 10 years, probably at the late end. Maybe we will have cars driving around without people in them. I think where we could potentially see, you know, and it's not going to be the McDonald's and the airlines adopting it. It's going to be the car manufacturers that, you know, they build a car, or perhaps the plane manufacturers, they build a plane, and that plane is out there getting contracts on its own to move people from place to place, figure out, you know, have people bid on things, figure out where it's going to go. And then the plane has to be able to cover its own maintenance and whatnot. And then any proceeds beyond that go to the manufacturer or whoever the manufacturer sold the royalty rights to, essentially.
Well, and imagine if you have the self-driving cars. I mean, it's a perfect example, in my opinion, because, you know, it could migrate from, I'm going to buy a car, it's going to take me to work, it's going to drive around during the day and taxi people, come and pick me up, take me home, drive around at night. It'll go to the fuel station, to charge up and everything. And if you migrate from that to, okay, now a group of us are going to get together and we're going to basically have tokenized ownership.
Community fleets.
In this, you know, some fleets that goes, and it would know, okay, enough of us in this neighborhood are going to a general area, so it takes us and drops us all off, and then it goes on, and we all make money by having this tokenized ownership, and we have our vehicle. We don't need buses anymore that drive around empty, all that type of stuff. There's some really neat stuff that could happen, but, you know, the biggest thing in front of it is you can't have self-driving cars in all these states, right? That they're scared for whatever reason, probably lobbyists as well.
Yeah, and
I'd like to pose that trolley problem that's a non sequitur.
One of our denizens was talking about basically that. It's a kind of a variation on what he was talking to me about with Florida, and the laws are kind of ripe for, you know, if you wanted to own a fleet of Teslas, a fleet of Cybertrucks.
I think that's
now
amazing.
You know, you're a cab company and you just buy a fleet of, you know, self-driving cars and you manage the fleet.
Yeah,
you know,
and then food delivery. But the problem is then people aren't, you know, the gig jobs that people are delivering food now, that would fall to it as well. I would say though, for adoption, the thing that I get most frustrated with is the shallow utility. Like, oh, it's an NFT, therefore it's cool. If there's utility or ownership or something that is a usable thing that could be tied with either NFTs or blockchain, those are the things that really should be explored more, because there's so many things that can be done and there aren't enough people doing them, right? I think it's moving slow because everybody's speculating, magic, nobody's doing, right?
That's like magic.
You and your utility, man. Number go up.
I want to build, and number go up's fine to fuel it, but the problem is, I mean, you really need people in the communities to start saying, well, where can I use this, or what business could I create that could, or project that can do this thing?
Well, and developers are going to be the key to this, I believe. I mean, that's what we believe at Rivet anyway. Like, our whole motive is about this. You know, as soon as it becomes as easy as it was for people to become app developers, you're going to see this flood of amazing ideas and mediocre ideas and ideas that don't work.
Yeah.
And some of those are going to be like gems and just destroy industries we don't know are at risk yet. It's a meteor, and none of us can tell where it's going to land.
Who are grasping this and understanding the utility of it and the usefulness of it, who don't have programming experience per se, but as soon as there's a tool to where somebody can, like, what you see is what you get, web editor, where you can, okay, I'm going to build my company based on this. You're going to have people like Crypto Tommy in chat just said low-hanging fruit would be just to manage the life cycle of batteries on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Have that battery has a token, and so you can identify it and you can track its state.
Well, maybe it's self-requests, repair, or replacement by somebody who does that, and it pays them automatically.
It's a great idea that somebody when it's easier can just
that is why it is so important to look at and to have multiple projects. Ethereum is amazing, okay, but there are some, because the biggest hurdle to adoption is the model and the difficulty with which it is that you are able to build something. Because Dave, you mentioned a a no code web ability to build something and usable on blockchain. That we have to have things that are scalable, have to have things that a normal dev can understand, that there aren't unknown pitfalls that, well, no one's ever done this, so let's hope it works and we don't lose all of our customers' money, right? You can't have that, really. So you need the ways to bridge those gaps, and Ethereum and full decentralization is part of it, but you have to be able to integrate existing systems. And so, we specifically use Den as a way to kind of model, okay, it's something that people can understand. It's community development. There's an economy, there's scarcity, there's a way to control how things are built out, and it requires zero code. It's a very interesting thing. The code's already there, right? The platform's there, right. But things like that are going to start happening, where people are assembling these building blocks and making things happen, even if they're ugly at first. Doesn't matter if it works, right?
And even for people that do know how to really get to it and code it themselves, I don't know if it was you I was talking to about this, but someone about basically public contracts, publicly, like, I'm going to use this building block that is open source and vetted and it's secure, and I'm going to use that in my thing. You know what I mean? Having a library of
right.
A library.
I think we were talking about that. But kind of to bring both your points together, I think one of the biggest things when it comes to adoption is, people call it ease of use, which does kind of that is true, but it's people getting confidence in a new technology to them. It may not be even if it's not that new to, developers, but for someone to be able to put something together, the confidence that gives them to move forward and to not shy away from something else it's immeasurable,
Absolutely. That's a really, really good point. The second somebody feels they can take that, everybody has had that moment maybe with their parents or their grandparents where you finally get it across to them that there's nothing that they can click on, and there's nothing that they can type, and there's nothing that they can touch that will, break the spindle. Like you can't break the machine by trying to use it in new ways, unless you're getting really down into the weeds. And you're certainly not at that level when you get started. This machine is not meant to be broken by people experimenting with it. It's meant to be resilient to that. And that's really a thing that we all have to keep in mind as people building at the base level, right? We need to make sure our machine doesn't break when people do things that we don't expect. By the way,
that is why press outlets are so important, Ross, because this entire time we've been preaching the same message, and we over time have been able to refine it so that people can understand it better. But we're constantly working against the flow of everything, because the crypto press is all about speculation. It's all about somebody's going to pay them to print something about a project that isn't, and those are the not Ross's group, but some of the other.
And one of the things that we do, because I have that same issue that you have, is behind the scenes. We're not just a news organization that publishes the stuff that you see us putting out. We have a whole thing where mainstream journalists can come to us privately, and we will go through their article and correct stuff for them. And we don't want any credit. We're a free consulting service for them. Just so these dumb articles would stop coming out, man.
I will tell you.
Thanks for doing that.
We actually, I spent about 3 weeks talking to a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist for New York Times. They were supposed to quote me. They had all this great stuff. He was writing, you can look it up. It was on meme tokens. And he came to us because he knew that we were legitimate engineering, whereas some of these others that he was really looking at were pure speculation, pure, the craziness that was happening. And, we went through that whole thing. It was pretty awesome. He was a great guy, very, very smart. And they totally cut everything from us out. I was like, what? I invested all that time. It's okay, though. I think I at least gave him some light that he, might have been able to use. But
anyway. And it's super common for them to ignore every suggestion we give them and just publish something absolutely incorrect because it's a catchy headline.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think on that, and with people like Ross and what they're doing, the walls are beginning to crack. It used to be just 2 years ago, the reality versus what people thought, and not everybody, but I mean a good number of people. You know, it's like, oh, Bitcoin. Oh, are you a drug dealer, or do you just work with drug dealers? What you know? I mean, and they're not joking. It's like, seriously, what is that? You sell people or drugs? Which is it?
I got a short one about that after you're done.
But it's like someone telling someone that, you know, I'm an anarchist.
Dude, I was a guy named Ross in San Francisco pushing
you're an
Bitcoin.
Antifa and you like to burn stuff down. Like, no, I just think people should have home gardens. You know, it's like so opposite, and it's not that bad now. It's not as bad now. People know, but people still think, yeah, it's used for that a lot. And
you know, it is amazing what people still think. Mind. I was talking to a guy that I used to work with for years. We spent years together in the military, same division, all that stuff. You know, good friend of mine. And I hit him up about a year ago, and I was like, you know what? I think Nate might be ready to like look into this Bitcoin thing. So I called him up. He's in Virginia, and I talked to him. I was like, hey man, just wanted to talk to you about Bitcoin. You heard of that? I'm starting to get, you know, I've been starting to get serious on, like, professionally on starting to do some of this stuff. And he says to me, completely serious, and he's the kind of guy that when he tells you something, he's saying it because he knows it and he's confident in what he's saying. And he says, dude, no, man, you can't mess. There's child porn just embedded into the source code of that stuff from the ground up.
Remember that story?
Don't even get, you know. And I'm like, dude, where are you getting this from? You know? And that was just like not even a year ago. And so people still have this association of Bitcoin being something that's completely like dark and shady and mischievous and bad.
And I can't point to how exactly we did it, but we got Disney to run a full Bitcoin node, right? In order to handle our integration, you know, our architecture, we interchain with Bitcoin. And the very first thing when we said, hey, we want to make sure that you guys know what we're doing, you know, I'll fund it, whatever else. The very first thing out of, I can't remember who it was, but the very first thing that came back was, well, we aren't sure. We need to look at it because Bitcoin is involved in beheadings, drugs, and other things, right?
This is the whole thing you can think of in the world,
right? And
like, that's Bitcoin.
This is a point that really frustrates me, because you hear people talk about anti-money laundering. They just say money laundering, and it's this thought stopper word. When in reality, if anybody looked at what that was intended to do and what it's actually done, they would get an eyeful of lots and lots of spending, lots and lots of burden, and not a lot of provable to show for it. You know, we elevate this idea because it sounds plausible, but it's a lot like razor blades and Halloween candy. Point to me an actual money launderer. Point to me an actual AML operation that proved valuable at doing what it says it's supposed to do. You can't show it because there's no proof that it even ever happens. It's just an excuse for financial surveillance.
KYC is the illicit activity,
right?
Now it's going to be over $600, right? So
yeah.
You go to the next question.
It's weird. It's weird that we're talking about this, and it seems like all I can think of is like the Middle Ages or even further back, where, you know, things were explained to people with like crazy things, you know, like demons will come out of your nose while you sleep and they're going to do this. And it's like, that probably is true. I know.
A really good analogy for where we're at right now. In this.
Yeah. And you can tell people anything about Bitcoin if they don't understand it. And that's, I guess, going back to that, you know, that confidence to look into it. But if you use fear, like that guy was scared. I mean, he just like, oh, don't. And I remember that. I remember people saying, if you download a wallet and you download the blockchain, you have child porn on your computer and the government could come arrest you. And that was like, but that's like brilliant. You know what I mean? I mean, that's like, oh, that's going to scare the crap out of a lot.
Right. And don't say Bloody Mary 3 times in the mirror with the lights off at night.
That's it. Don't say Bitcoin 3 times or you'll get child porn.
I heard Siri again. Okay, so we'll try to do this one really fast because we only have a few minutes. So just no long conversations on this. Foost, there are a lot of similarities between legislation around development of the internet and the crypto space now. Do you think the U.S. will ultimately take a broad and open stance around crypto to foster development, or will they tighten their grips and push more of the industry elsewhere?
Oh, they're totally going to eventually have to side with it. Otherwise, they're going to lose to it.
But I think they're going to tighten their grip first.
Yeah,
I don't know. With China, I think if China pushes really hard, I think it's just that's going to be, I think the hubris thing, and it's like, okay, fine, it's like it's Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. I think whatever China does openly and hardcore, we were going to be like, well, we don't like that. We love this stuff.
Well, we have to do it to compete, and we have to do it to be anti-China, right? To not
Right.
do it,
It's
do
so
it the
funny.
evil way, do it the
The
American
riding
way.
crop industry. Do you hear about those guys anymore? They used to have a powerful lobby when cars were coming in.
Can I tell you something? I've always thought, and this is a separate subject, but it's all everything in the world is divide and conquer. Like that is the powers that be versus the citizens. It is they're in the end going to divide us all by how our earlobes are attached. This is like anything they can, as race, religion, anything, they're going to divide us, right?
Or which
The
blockchain
interesting thing was the space race, where the competition between nations benefited the people, and that's why I've said this often before. That's why we have personal computers. That's why half of this industry exists, is because of that space race that just put a ton of research into it and money. And I always joked that, gosh, I wish Al Qaeda had a space program, because we would probably go back to the moon, right? And now that's gone off to commercial, and it's just an interesting thing, because if it really, that would be amazing if the U.S. took what China is doing with crypto and thought about it and did what they should be doing. Because the whole time, my opinion, specifically, and I've said this before, is that the internet was primarily driven by engineering companies. AT&T, they're full of engineers. Everything about the internet was engineering, especially early days. Even its intended use to share research, right? And to avoid cold things that we were worried about in the Cold War. But this is primarily about money, and therefore it is being treated entirely differently. And yeah, I do think, they'll probably tighten grip. It looks like they're trying to tighten the grip right now. I don't know. And who knows what will pop out, and, they aren't going to be able to hold it all. So anyway, let's hope that it's free and open, like you would expect in the United States of America. We'll see.
Well, and I would add to that and say hope is great, and we should have it, because there's there's lots of reasons to hope, but hope can't be our strategy. Right. We have to be out there pushing for this, because ultimately,
oh my God, that's such an amazing catchphrase. That is so cool.
Well, why wouldn't we should tell everybody should.
That's what I fight against. That's what makes me mad. I go on shows and I'm the doom and gloom guy. Hope cannot be our strategy. That cannot be our strategy.
We should have it. We should strategize with hope.
Yes.
But if we make hope our strategy, then we're essentially just giving it to chance, right?
Yeah, it has worked in the past, but I don't think it's working anymore.
But hope is great, and it's beautiful. It makes it so that your strategy is optimistic, which it has to be, and strategize optimistically. That's the other thing we have to do. And I would just say add those two things to what you were saying, Joe.
Yep, I agree.
To the question, I would say let's take tyranny literally. Okay, so let's imagine a scenario where we're a country at war. We have a president using that war as an excuse to delay elections, and unrest civilly is now an excuse to implement martial law. So we have basically a dictator martial law country at war, military fully funded. The only network that we're going to be able to communicate with each other on at that point is going to be decentralized and immutable. So absolutely, it helps our freedom.
It's true.
100%.
Yeah, especially when you look at some of the privacy tools that are taking advantage of this now, and they're and leveraging incentivizing privacy and security. Those are the tools that we're going to need.
It's an interesting thing too. That's why we originally created Time on Dragon, was to incentivize people to do things that we saw normal non-technophiles doing, which was keeping their tokens on exchanges with Mt. Gox, and not putting them in a hardware wallet, and not doing the things that all of the all the people who have been doing this forever knew that you should be doing, but the normies weren't. And so it's like, let's put this incentive on there and then see how else we can use it.
And I think it's coming more circular now. People are starting to take for granted security. But
MetaMask is some scary stuff happening, right? So,
there's not as huge of a push for hardware wallets, and that isn't something everyone says. But
there's been like a social engineering push on that, right? Where there's been a lot of people losing their MetaMask stuff over social engineering attacks, or is there something different that I don't know about with MetaMask going on?
That's probably another. That's a long. Let's cut here. It's like it's.
I want to say something that Roth on Ross's point. I mean, I'm older, so I remember when like TV remotes were kind of a newer thing, and people were very lazy back then. If you couldn't find the remote and your show was over, you might not really want to watch the next thing, but you're like, I don't want to get up and switch the channel. And that was like the height of laziness. That was like a joke that comics would tell. I mean, nowadays, like, I don't even know if you can change TV without the remote. Maybe there's an app, but I think people in general, like the masses, are starting to get fed up enough to where they're starting to take a look at other social media platforms. Because it's like, I will take so much. I'll watch a Lifetime movie, but not if it's about this or this one chick is in it. I won't watch it. Then I'll get up and change the channel. And I think people are getting to that point when it's with social media and with the control that they're starting to look at other platforms.
Enough people that have people they care about getting either deplatformed or afraid to speak. If your friends have to go elsewhere, then you're going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, right. That's how I feel about being afraid to spin up a company, is because it's afraid to speak. It's afraid to start a business.
I talked to a friend once about why they canceled someone in particular who happened to be president, right? And it was really funny because like, he mouths off too much. I'm like, you don't have to follow him. It's not even a default follow on Twitter. Why would you care to censor?
It is on Gab. Now that you say that, I just joined Gab, and it's an auto follow.
Well, but that's up to in this case.
Yeah.
Why would someone? It's like, I don't want anyone to be able to follow this person. It's like,
but I do think crazy. For a long time, a lot of the alternative social media sites, the only people who went there were the people who had been deplatformed from the other social media sites, and so you ended up with a bunch of deplorables on these sites.
Echo chambers, right? That's that.
But essentially, it was a bunch of people that no reasonable person would want to associate with. So, like, what are you doing on this platform unless you're a terrible person? But now the mainstream social media sites have started
making everyone a terrible person.
Yeah, making everyone a terrible person. That it's like you can't take that seriously anymore, and people are looking for someplace else to go. And it's enough people are looking for someplace else to go that these side platforms are no longer just the deplorables.
Yeah,
not that. To be clear, not that I'm using.
I agree with that. In the beginning, it was almost like there was this problematic community in the eyes of the company, and then like wherever that community went got the bad rap that was already labeled on. Like they were labeled. They didn't label themselves. They were labeled as bad, and then so they go to a different platform, and now that platform inherits that label, which is a problem. You know?
Mm-hmm. We're watching play out in real time exactly what happens when you do that kind of bullshit, right?
I will say it's very unifying. I think probably I'm agreeing with far more different people than would have happened 4 years ago.
But now where are the echo chambers? Now the echo chambers are ending up being the old social media sites that have gotten rid of everybody else. Gotten rid of all of the differing opinions. Yeah. So. Like I think they're digging their own grave, and I think we're getting there. Like,
yeah, that's good. That's a good thing. Okay,
that's like the inverse Metcalf effect.
Okay, Dave, you want me to go down the list? We're not. This is the hour. So, Dave. Well, we'll do the if you guys want, we'll do the lightning. But Dave, what's going on?
What I'm saying is this is the end of the question list. There's no lightning room.
Oh, that's the end. Okay, all right, good.
The last one was about. Cool. Do you think blockchain makes resisting tyranny easier or more difficult? That was the last question.
Oh, okay. Awesome. All right. So, cool. Dave, what's going on this week?
Man, so much. I was talking earlier about really focusing on like building out local community stuff as as a model to see what works on a I don't see enough people really as much anymore as they used to drilling into like a small scale blockchain stuff. So we are launching a local what do I call it? We're launching something built on DIN. The layer is already active. It's the Gainesville, layer. And what we're going to be building is a blueprint for other people, if they want it, to say, okay, here's what we did. Here's the mistakes we made. Here's what worked. Here's how we can form a community. If you want to do it in your city, here you go. Take it open source model for spinning up a local. We're going to do a paper. We're going to do a print paper in the age of print papers saying they can't make it.
Cool.
So we'll fuse it with cryptocurrency, and we'll fuse it with DIN, and it'll be an excellent proof of concept to say no, it'll work if you do it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's great.
It's the printing press, not what you're printing. That's fantastic.
Right.
All right, Austin.
So at Rivet, just yesterday, we open sourced our Cardinal solution, which is our upcoming blockchain paraclient. Essentially, it's designed to sit alongside an Ethereum node and eventually other blockchain nodes and provide amped up capacity and amped up functionality. And we are not running on it yet at Rivet, but it has reached the point where we are ready to start sharing it with other people. And it is now public on our GitHub. You should check it out. And we're very excited about the progress we're making there.
Awesome. Sean.
Not a ton going on. Usual stuff. I got a interview here in like 2 hours with Crypto Blood and I think in EOS Detroit. They're doing some new NFT stuff we're going to talk about.
That's cool.
That's about it, man. Just the usual shows and me bouncing around.
All right. Ross.
Fighting crime under a assumed identity in the evenings.
Cape or no cape?
It depends. It's getting chilly, so I usually use a cape. And there's a breeze. And I just want to hang it off me like Dracula. It's got to.
Should be the right.
I say interesting story this week on globalcryptopress.com, and something that may affect us all very soon is the SEC monitoring decentralized exchanges. They are now have a $5 million contract with a company out here in Silicon Valley that is using AI to identify suspicious wallets and transactions on Uniswap, PancakeSwap, and all those spots that you thought they weren't at. They are there now.
I wonder if it'll identify OpenSea management that might be trading, or we didn't even hit. Gosh, we didn't even hit upon the question of the Robinhood executive that was trading.
Yeah,
that's a big thing. Because if they don't do anything about that, then I'm wondering what's reality.
I saw a little bit about that yesterday, and I just I saw a screenshot of something. I didn't know if it was real or not, but apparently it is.
I don't know this. What did Robinhood executive do?
He sold all of his personal stock in either AMC or GameStop.
AMC.
He sold his AMC. And apparently he sent an email or a text message or something, was like, I sold all my AMC. By the way,
GameStop or GME. Yeah.
GME or AMC, and we're delisting them tomorrow, just a heads up. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
First of all, don't do that. Second of all, don't write that down. What are you doing?
Wow. Sounds to me like the SEC should be pointed far more at the system it ought to be governing as a matter of first order than it ought to be pointed at DEXs. Yeah. We need to come up with some really great DEX trades that are adversarial examples so that their AIs can have some fun.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Well, hey, I forgot I'm building a DEX. I did forget that. Yeah, I'm building a DEX in the next 2 weeks.
There was that experiment that we did, Greg, back in the day with Open Relay, where we basically crafted a bunch of transactions to show DEXs trading things that weren't actually tradable on those DEXs.
That's cool.
Yeah, because they were using one of the fields that you didn't have to populate as part of a trade that you take directly to the smart contract, and we just made it look like that happened, as opposed to.
I thought you weren't able. I thought you couldn't do that. A real DEX couldn't do that, couldn't fake that.
This was on 0x. 0x has off-chain order books. So we basically made trades where the fee was going to go to an order book that didn't host the tokens that were being traded by that transaction.
Okay.
Wow. I did see a report this morning that there were people that were attacking some of the bots by creating fake tokens that the bots would trade up in order to catch someone, and
it's a dark forest out there.
Empty out all their ETH, and then then they countered. It was very interesting. That type of stuff just is very interesting. So great.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you have going on?
Okay, I would say first off, I got to just comment shout outs here. Carl, Crypto, Tommy, you guys out there having these great ideas that you're just chatting about as we go. I love to see that. It's magic. That's how we're going to do this. So pursue those ideas. Don't get discouraged. If you want to come, use the Ethereum blockchain, Rivet can help you do that. Rivet.cloud, check it out. And keep fighting the good fight. Stay optimistic.
Very good, very good. And Carl, by the way, I don't have a beef with the Chinese people. It's with the CCP. And,
definitely.
And unfortunately, that is
same with Iran.
So
Iran, everybody.
So I've been called a racist on Twitter before because I don't like the Chinese government. I'm like,
yeah, it was because whenever, especially on Twitter, when you don't have the room to type what you really mean, and you have to paraphrase it and shorten it, and then people think you mean something that you don't because you weren't really allowed to do the whole thing unless you did a tweet storm, that kind of thing.
Oh,
everyone's trying to go viral, right? So the best way to do that these days is to get a hate mob going.
Man, I've never quite anyway. So for me, we have the DEN governance meeting that had been on Twitter, just pure audio forever. We realized we wanted to be able to demo. We wanted to be able to see faces and stuff, and also to get it further than just Twitter, put it on LinkedIn, because we're doing a very interesting model of decentralized governance, and we're actually doing it. And so we're changing the format. The very first episode of the new format is this afternoon at I think it's 1:00 Pacific, and it'll be very interesting. We're going to basically post the entire agenda ahead of time. There's a place on there where you can actually come into the StreamYard meeting. So if you want to come in and ask a question live, you can. And so we're doing a bunch of that stuff, and we'll see how it goes. But it's at least a very active thing. And it's going to get more active because the governance. In fact, so anybody who has World Blockchain Roundtable lot, the next step in our governance model is going to allow arbitrary votes. Where in our case it would go beyond just the configuration of the layer itself on DEN. It would go into what are the rules going to be on the show? How are we going to change the way that the lots are generated or how they're split up? And basically the people who hold those lot are going to be able to help us figure out the, best path forward, and it'll be really fun. So anyway, that's coming.
Cool. Yeah, totally. That's 4 Eastern for my East Coast friends.
Yes. So, all right. Okay. So, we don't have a lightning round then. I think that's it, right? Does anybody have anything else in parting?
I want to ask Dave something, but I don't think he wants to ask on camera.
I mean, I'm an open book, baby. I was going to say, I'm probably sure. It depends.
Go ahead. Go ahead. We'll cut it off.
What do you think about Lieutenant Colonel that they took to the brig?
We'll talk about that later. I was going to say though, and we'll talk about this more this afternoon at the governance meeting. But if you have ownership of or fractional ownership, one of the lot for the layers on DEN Social, start thinking about if you don't like the banner or you don't like the avatar, or you want have a particular idea for the vision of the community or the rules and stuff. Start thinking about that and start working on a new banner to propose, because very soon we're going to have the ability to just propose and vote on things with whoever has those lot. And then whatever proposal passes, it'll just happen. So it won't be like, oh, we won, now let's go change it. It'll be like, okay, the votes put it in action, and now the banner's changed. So what we're doing is we're giving the keys to the car over to every individual layer, to start really like, okay, we've built up a framework and now go.
Yeah.
So that's what.
So you'll make your edit and hit propose, and that will be the proposal. That's super cool.
That's the vision, yeah. And so that's what's being built, and that's what's coming right after Matter tipping, where you don't have to hit Ethereum fees to be able to tip other creators on the platform, and that works on the app too in real world. If you're just boopable money, boop, there you go, that kind of thing.
Imagine if you could do that with Twitter. How cool would that be?
Well, Twitter
holy shit! I want a thumbs down button. I coded it.
Oh, you mean like what people want?
Right,
how
a
about
dislike button on Facebook.
If anyone's interested too, if anyone's interested, I'm starting to talk to people that I know and trust about the actual PM, the project management side of it. That how to convert from some of these features could be monetizable, right? Where I'm going to build this because I'm going to make some money, but some of them won't be. So how do you balance that, and how does DIN spend the fees that it collects in order to have these things happen? Yep. So we're looking at some of that right now, and we're basically just taking one step at a time. So the first is getting this layer governance in place. The next is moving from our current fairly inefficient site-wide governance. We already have decentralized governance, but it requires you to go get your hardware wallet, to go sign a message, and then us to tally the message and say, oh, this is what won, or for someone to tally it. But what we're wanting to do is make it so that that whole thing just, you have the mobile app and you have some participation in the system, either having created stuff or owning stuff, and it pops up a vote and it says, hey, we're looking at this. And, you can abstain, of course, but you can say, oh, I like this idea. I'm going to vote on that. And it's just simple, right? So anyway, we're looking at it slightly differently, and trying to.
I'm excited.
The fees aren't going to be there, right? So participation was the thing we really wanted to try to get.
Pulling away the friction from participation, getting rid of that.
Yeah.
Participation. Participation, not just relying on hope as our strategy.
What is it? Hope. I wrote that down. Hope cannot be our strategy.
Build things. Okay. All right. That's it then. Thanks everybody again for joining. Hopefully I was a decent host.
Yeah. Thank all of you, and thank you for hosting.
Good show.
Great. It was good content. Thanks a bunch. All right. See you guys next week. Bye.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best. Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.